Earlier this year, the Gambling Commission, the UK's gambling watchdog, began a crackdown against some of Britain's most popular TV game shows, including Deal or No Deal and Red versus Black. Their claims that the shows were high-profile illegal gambling provoked a backlash from Britain's tabloid press, and the Commission retreated from the issue. But now, with the watchdog locked in negotiations with broadcasters, we asked Philip Graf, the new Gambling Commission chairman, what the Commission hoped to achieve in terms of a carve-out for these popular TV game shows. And we also asked him how the Commission would adapt to its new role as regulator of Britain's remote gambling industry.
I'm very aware that when this first came up, it looked as if this whole question of shows, the shows Red versus Black and Deal and No Deal, etc. on television, it looked as if the Gambling Commission's role in life was to crack down on everything that was fun on television. Actually, here we were confronted with a very blatant and obvious breach of the law, right, in the context of Red versus Black. And we looked to take a very sensible and proportionate view of it, because the last thing we want to do is to stop what is harmless fun. We're in very constructive discussions with television companies about how they can find a way through this, either by some form of carve-out or by modifying the shows itself. The area, in addition, that we're quite concerned about, and really concerned about, if you like, is a link into harder gambling. So, for example, Deal or No Deal happens to be, I think, the most profitable game in pubs in the last 12 months. So we're concerned about the link into hard gambling licensing. We're concerned about websites linked to the actual games themselves, in which hard gambling is either advertised, right, or indeed people are encouraged upon those websites to gamble. The online gambling is clearly a new area, and will be in some respects a new area for us. But don't forget, we do regulate some online gambling in this country, and we have had very good relationships with many of the overseas regulators, and a great deal of respect for those overseas regulators. So we clearly, have got to make sure that we have got good relationships with those, that we're comfortable in the structure that we're setting up, upon which we will rely on, in a number of cases, on them to provide regulatory oversight, that their regulatory oversight is appropriate and proper and in line with what we would expect. The question of how you minimize the online black market is a twofold exercise, is it not? It's an exercise for of having an appropriate regulation, right, and also an appropriate tax regime, right? Now, I'm only going to talk about the appropriate regulatory process, and I think, what you're talking about is having, a good quality regulatory approach to matters, which makes it actually in the interests of the online company, right, to be in a regulated marketplace where they can promote and develop their services. Right? In terms of sports betting, there is a small problem in this country, I believe, in the regulated marketplaces. Right? I believe we work very well with the bookmakers, and increasingly well with the various sports governing bodies to deal with this matter. We know there are relatively few convictions. There are relatively few convictions for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's actually quite a difficult area to get a criminal burden of proof. But actually, the sports governing body has sanctions which are really more effective than criminal sanctions, and that's where we are encouraging people to focus their efforts. A regulator's job is not simply to be an enforcer. A regulator's job is to ensure that regulations are adhered to, and there are many things you can do before you get to the point of enforcement. So we're very anxious to work to get to, if you like, to work with people to a stage where we don't have to move to enforcement, where we work through informing people, to working alongside people, to explaining to people how to work within regulations, and encourage them to talk to us about how they can be compliant before we move to enforcement, which is very much, as we see it, the last stage in things, but sometimes is absolutely necessary because we're involved with some quite substantial, potentially criminal enterprises.